You ever look around and wonder why some of the brightest, most ambitious people you know, the ones who seem to have it all figured out, end up just deeply unhappy? Well, Clayton Christensen saw this happen with his own classmates from Harvard Business School. These are people with incredible talent who, down the line, found themselves in jobs they hated or in broken marriages. So he had this idea. What if the same theories we use to build and manage great companies could help us build great lives? How do you apply the mindset of a CEO to your own personal happiness? Let's dive into that.
And this right here is the core idea, the foundation for everything else. Your life isn't just a series of things that happen to you. Nope, it's an enterprise. And you're in the driver's seat. You are the chief strategist, making the big calls that are going to shape its future. It's a huge and deeply personal responsibility when you think about it. So to really unpack this, we're going to walk through 5 key areas. We'll start with the professional world, how to find real meaning in your career. Then we'll get into how your daily choices actually reveal what your true strategy is. From there, we'll bring it home and talk about building a strong family culture. Then get grounded in why integrity is so critical. And finally, we'll tackle the biggest question of all. How do you choose the right yardstick to measure your own life?
All right, first up, a career of meaning. This is all about building a professional life that does more than just pay the bills. It has to be something that genuinely fulfills you. So, where do we even start with a question that big?
Well, Christensen gives us this powerful tool from the business world called the RPP framework. Here's how it works for you. Your resources are what you've got. Your skills, your time, your money. Your processes are what you do with them. Your habits, how you make decisions, and your priorities. That's your why. It's what you value most. Now here's the key insight. Having great resources isn't enough, not even close. Real capabilities, whether that's being a great parent or a great leader, they only get built when your processes and priorities are working together to turn those resources into something that actually matters.
And that brings us to a really critical distinction, which comes from Frederick Herzberg's motivation theory. He basically found there are 2 totally different sets of factors at play in our jobs. On one side, you have hygiene factors. Things like salary, status, job security. They're essential. Without them, you're going to be miserable. But here's the catch. They can never make you truly happy. Deep, lasting satisfaction comes from the other side, the motivators. We're talking about meaningful work, personal growth, feeling like you're actually contributing something. Chasing a bigger paycheck while ignoring the motivators, that's the trap that leads to a well-paying but totally empty career.
And here's something that should feel like a relief. You don't need a perfect 10-year plan mapped out. Life is actually a mix of your deliberate strategy, your big goals, and your emergent strategy. All those unexpected opportunities that just pop up. So the key isn't to be rigid and stick to some old plan no matter what. It's to stay open, stay curious, and be ready to pivot when a better path shows up. A fulfilling life is usually just a series of experiments, all guided by your core purpose. Okay, let's move on to our next section because it builds directly on this idea. Strategy is what you do. This is where we get to the core of how your little daily choices are screaming to the world what you truly care about. This is one of the most powerful lines in the entire book. You can say your family is your priority, you can say your health is your top priority, but where does your time actually go? Your energy, your money. The truth is, your calendar and your bank statement don't lie. They show your real strategy, not just the one you talk about.
And that leads to a pretty stark warning. We're always telling ourselves, oh, I'll focus on my relationships later, or I'll start taking care of my health later. But the thing is, later almost never comes. See, capabilities, whether it's in your marriage or in your career, they're built through consistent daily investment. Every single day you neglect them, you're creating a little gap. And over time, that gap can become so wide it's impossible to close tomorrow.
Now, for a totally fascinating concept, and it's framed with a kind of weird question. What job did you hire that milkshake for? This actually comes from a famous business study where researchers realized people weren't buying milkshakes just for the taste. They were hiring the milkshake to do a job. Make a long, boring morning commute more interesting?
This is the whole jobs to be done theory. We hire things all the time to do a specific job for us. So you have to ask yourself, what job are you hiring your career for? Is it just for status, for security, or is it for fulfillment and to make a contribution? The same question applies to your relationships, even your hobbies. Once you understand the real job behind your choices, you can start making decisions that actually line up with what you truly need. And just like we hire a career to do a job, we also build a family to fulfill some of our deepest needs. And that brings us to Section 3, Culture in Your Family.
Now, this isn't about setting a bunch of rules. It's about intentionally building the character, the resilience, and the shared values that are going to guide your loved ones long, long after you're gone.
Christensen says that real learning happens in 3 schools. First, there's deliberate learning, like in a classroom. Then there's experience, which comes from practice. And then there's the school of hard knocks, learning from failure. We spend so much energy trying to protect our kids from this school, right? But Christensen argues that failure is one of life's most important teachers. It's where kids truly build resilience, good judgment, and real, lasting confidence.
Just like a company, every family has a culture. It's that set of unspoken norms and values that guides how everyone behaves, even when nobody's watching. And that culture doesn't just happen by accident. It's built day by day through repeated actions and consistent expectations. In the long run, that culture becomes an internal compass for every single member of the family. It literally becomes their destiny.
Okay, next, let's turn to the moral anchor for everything we've talked about, the path to integrity. This section is all about the danger of those tiny little compromises and the surprising power you get from full commitment.
So here's an idea that feels totally backwards at first. Being 100% committed to something is actually easier than being 98% committed. Now, why is that? Well, because if you're only 98% committed to one of your values, you spend mental energy every single day debating, is this time part of the 2% where I can make an exception? 100% commitment just removes the decision. The answer is always no. It takes way less mental effort.
And this is what he calls the trap of marginal thinking. We justify small, bad decisions by telling ourselves, it's just this once. Skipping your workout just today. Making one tiny ethical compromise for convenience. Each little decision seems harmless by itself, but when you add them all up, the effect can be catastrophic. We have to judge our choices not by their immediate, tiny cost, but by where they'll lead us in the long run.
And all of this, every one of these ideas, it all leads us to our final and maybe the most profound section. Choosing your yardstick. After everything we've discussed, how do we actually define what a successful life even means?
To even begin to choose the right yardstick, we need one critical capability: humility. But Christensen defines it in a really interesting way. It's not weakness. It's a powerful willingness to learn from anyone. It's a strength that comes from self-awareness, because without it, we can't ever honestly look at our own lives. Humble people, they grow faster, they build stronger relationships, and they avoid the arrogant mistakes that come from chasing the wrong things.
So how will you measure your life? Society gives us its typical yardsticks, right? Wealth, status, a long list of achievements. But Christensen offers a totally different set of metrics. The number of people you helped, the quality of the relationships you nurtured, and the integrity with which you lived your life. That's a profound shift in how you keep score.
So to wrap it all up, the book really comes back to these 3 guiding questions. How do you make sure you have a happy career? You've got to focus on the motivators and your purpose. How do you build happy relationships? You invest your resources early, and you intentionally build a strong culture. And how do you live a life of integrity? Simple, but hard. You commit 100% to your values.
In the end, the message is simple, but it's completely transformative. A meaningful life isn't something you just stumble upon or find one day. It is built. It's the sum of all your choices, your habits, your daily decisions. It's an enterprise, and you are its chief strategist. So the real question is, what kind of life are you going to choose to build?